traveling around the city of Cleveland for 10 years, finding the best artists and entrepreneurs of all sorts to come and have coffee and drinks and get to know each other and foster some collaboration as often as we possibly can. That's what we're about. We're trying to figure out how do we get really talented people together, and the fantastic view in a bar, that's the best I can do. So, my name's Thomas Fox. If we haven't met before, please come say hi to me this evening. I'll be singing and dancing all night. There's a few years ago, I just said a minute ago that we were doing artists and entrepreneurs. That line of what that is, like, continues to blur, like whether someone's an artist or an entrepreneur, and I think that it's really cool that the line is sort of disappearing, where you see somebody that's bringing some crazy idea out into the world. It's a little bit of both, to the point where you can't tell the difference anymore. Today's Tech Talk is about the truth. I called it the truth. It's going to be somebody's truth. It's all about perspective. The content marketing space. So we have three ridiculously talented people that work somehow within content, brand content, partnerships with influencers, a whole bunch of stuff. First person I want to introduce you to is Jason Therrien, who's a longtime friend. He runs Thunder Tech. If you're familiar with Thunder Tech, we're one of the largest digital marketing firms. Grab your microphone, Jason. Right here. Grab this one. You can say hi.
Hello. Howdy. How are we?
I love Jason. I've known him for like 15 years or 20 years. I'm not sure.
100.
We're 100 years. We're all hobbits. So he runs Thunder Tech, which is one of the largest digital marketing and advertising agencies in the city of Cleveland. They do a lot of great work. I won't even start to go through the client list. It's very cool, all the work that they do in town. John Stursa is amazing entrepreneur here in town. He runs a group that I don't know how you wouldn't have heard of. I'm from Cleveland, but he started a YouTube channel when he was 13 and has now turned it into one of the largest news networks in all the land. Give it up for John. Give it up for Jason too, Jason. And last coming up is Joe Pulizzi. A long time ago, he was in public relations and said, you want to know what? Everyone's in publishing. Content is marketing. You got to be making content, and he was really right. He built a ridiculously successful business in a content marketing institute before starting yet another content marketing group to support entrepreneurs in the content space. It's called CEX, Creators
Content Entrepreneur
Content
Expo.
Entrepreneur.
That's okay.
Expo.
That's good.
CEX
But you're
is really
going.
catchy.
You're going, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
I am going.
You're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wouldn't miss it. It's in September? August?
August 24th to 26th.
August 24th to 26th. There's no way I'll miss it. Jason and John will both be there too. All right, let's take a seat. We've got about half an hour to 40 minutes. I really don't want to keep from the music too long, but I think that it's really special to have these three particular guys in a room together. And we'll get, do you want to start off by just defining content? I mean...
We should go with
No.
the godfather of content marketing.
The godfather of content marketing?
So content is anything. You don't want to define content. You probably want to define content marketing.
Okay.
Which is basically you want to create something that's going to deliver some kind of behavior change in the form of a story. So I want to deliver something in textual, video, audio to a particular audience on an ongoing basis so that they know, like, and trust us. And if they do that, hopefully they'll buy from us. That's why I just don't like content, because
Anything's
we're all
content.
creating content. We're all looking at content. It's not going to do anything. We want to say we want a behavior change. That's what we're looking for.
If a tree falls in the woods,
There you go.
there has to be an observer for the content. Then that's why it's content
That's it.
marketing.
Yeah.
All right, do you guys want to talk about this at all, or is shows? All right, we're good.
I mean,
Thanks for
you can
coming.
keep
Thanks
going.
for
Yeah,
coming.
bar's
That's it.
open, everybody.
All right, so people are creating content for the end goal of, I mean, that's actually a good place to go here, is there's people that are creating content that have no intention of ever making it a business. Like, and that's in the space of everything else. But then at some point in time, these people that have no intention of making their content a business wind up with so much attention that somebody that runs a business says, "Can I hire you to make stuff?" John, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have personal experience with that going back from, I'm from Cleveland when I was 13, 30 now. But I started the platform to showcase local music, specifically at the time. And I remember artists like always asking to get posted, etc. And I was just doing it because I loved the music and I wanted people to realize, like, oh, we have a lot of really great music here in the city. And I remember specifically one artist was like, I'll pay you to post this or whatever. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. And over time, it just like I kind of saw how that grew, and I was almost not forced to, but it ended up becoming a business because what we were doing was working in that way and getting like the names out of the artists at the time. Yeah, it just like opened my eyes to how I was creating for what I loved, and then it made an avenue for us to kind of build a business off of like many years later.
Is that normal for Jason and Joe? You guys see, you guys are like studying and seeing a lot of other content entrepreneurs. Jason, you're probably for brands working on finding influencer partners. How common is John's story?
It's more common than you think, and I think, as an agency working on behalf of brands, we're going to score a lot of points when we can find the entrepreneur that perhaps hasn't been found by everybody yet, right? That doesn't have the huge price tag, but perhaps has the right reach and engagement for our clients. Now, some agencies, frankly, will traffic in that and walk away, and it's transactional and good, bad, or indifferent. That's fine. We try to take a different lens to that, and sometimes it works in the brand and our favor, and sometimes we catapult them to success and we're left in the dust. But I think there's a relational aspect to working with influencers that we're very big on at ThunderTech, and that has served us well and our clients over time. But that's not the only way out there.
Yeah, it's an interesting relationship because it's a partnership. When you wind up putting money from a brand, that brand has value in the industry or in the world. That is, like, so John might do a partnership with a brand that is just colossal. It's craft, and there's like indie cred for John's content, but at the same time, craft pushing your work, your content out is going to expose you to that entire audience. So there's this constantly like climbing to the top. What's the healthiest way for people to navigate that climb of that catapulting? Is it like relationship building? You said that you hope people stay around.
Well, in our world, it's a spectrum, right? So either you're buying that as a transaction, and it's frankly, in our minds, you're looking at it as a media placement, right? So it is very transactional. We expect these things for this price, and perhaps we'll meet again, perhaps we will not, but that's the end of it. You've got affiliates, and you got all these spectrum of ways to interact. I think the best ones are where we can splice in a few of those ways to do it. To say, listen, you're a creator, you deserve, and you've built audience, you deserve compensation for that, right? Because you're delivering value to the brand that we represent. But at the same time, we don't want it as black and white. We'd like to look at something a little long term. So yes, there's payment and all these other ways to make money off of it. But when you can find a win-win, it works so much better, I think, in the long run.
Well, the reason why it works is because most brands can't do what John does. They cannot tell consistent stories over time, and most of those stories are about their products and services, and they don't tell something that a group of an audience is passionate about. And here's John's like, great, okay, we'll use John because we can't do this ourselves. But the great thing is content entrepreneur is probably the fastest growing business area on the planet right now. There are more people becoming content creators than anything else. So there's an opportunity for brands to say, we can't do this because we're about the campaign. Our campaign is 9 months. You know this. 9 months, 12 months. We've got this budget. This is what it's about. This is what we want to pitch. Oh my God, who's going to do the TikTok, the blog, the Instagram? It's nobody inside's going to do it. Can we find somebody else that can take us to that audience? And it becomes that transactional relationship.
So do you know what the number one profession amongst kindergarteners is that they aspire to be?
I mean, I've heard this. YouTubers.
It's shocking. This works into this speech very well. Yeah, right? It's what they're exposed to.
Yeah.
And there's good and bad with that, right? And there's a flood in your world of folks that think they should be or want to be, and some that can be, but it is dizzying right now because of that.
I don't know how it's possible that everyone can be everyone. It's a staggering number. I don't remember what the percentage is, but most kids want to be YouTubers specifically, and. Oh my gosh.
Well, there's no barriers to entry.
No.
Anybody, you have an internet connection and a smartphone, you can be a content creator. And that's the great thing and the scariest thing, and why there's so much clutter out there. And that's why, Jason works with some pretty big brands. They cannot tell, they so want to sell. And you cannot sell in this content if you want to build an audience. And that's what they're built to do. And the advertising industry has said, you got to pitch a product. And John's here saying, no, I'm going to cover an amazing story. I'm going to build an audience that way. And they're like, well, how'd you do that? So that's where you've got a lot of wonderful creators that have watched John and watched Mr. Beast and other creators and say, oh, no, we've got to create something compelling. We've got to do so over a long period of time. And that's the thing. You started at 13. So that's the downside to this from a creator standpoint. It takes so long. It takes an average of about 3 years to get to a point where you're making some money and saying it's not a hobby anymore. So you get a lot of disenfranchised kids out there that started and like, hey, I wanted to be a TikTok millionaire, and they realize it doesn't work like that. You really have to stay in the game a long time. So brands will say, oh, I don't want to go through that time. I don't want to put so much into my employees that I'm going to build them up because they might leave, and that's too much risk, so we're going to go out and find an influencer.
Should we be giving money to Facebook? Is it better for a brand to leverage organic audience, or should you be doing both? John, you have a really relevant opinion on this, and actually all you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mixture of both. Where I come in when it comes to creating content, we see what works organic, and you kind of double down on that. But then there's other instances where maybe we're trying to market something that our audience isn't as familiar with, and that's where you go the route where you try to be as organic as possible, but you have like the extra push with advertising and putting money into it.
So you guys do put money into things? Like sometimes if something's working, you like push the boulder down the hill?
Honestly, we don't very much. But if we're looking really to get some results, it's something we'll explore.
What do you think, Jason?
It's all the above, right? And it's based on the goals, right? Yeah. And I think that's where also it's based on the algorithms. You take LinkedIn, for example. We have a lot of B2B clients on that, and you can't link out anymore. They ding you. So if you've got a piece of content or a white paper or an event or whatever, you got to put some money behind it to have it seen, because Facebook's algorithm, or LinkedIn's algorithm, just is not going to serve it up to as many people as it would have a year ago. So again, it's based on the situation.
And it's changing all the time
And,
as the platforms. And that's Joe's big thing is when you don't own the real estate.
What's that saying?
Don't build your house on rented land. Yes, and everyone knows this, but we'll repeat it because it's important. Any followers, fans, or subscribers that you build on other platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you don't control them. You get blocked at any point. You could get kicked off. You don't have any control at all over that business. So you have to remember, like, okay, if you're building an audience on, let's say, TikTok, which could get shut down, we don't know. You want to figure out a way, how do I move that audience to something I can control? Let's say good old email or maybe SMS, depending on if you're a local business. Like, you want to focus on those things because you don't want a business where you can't control distribution. Ask the number of people that work with Amazon and said, oh, my Amazon business was great, until it's not. The same thing works in social media. So, but if you're, back to your question, if you are a content marketer, so you're a content creator in an organization, of your whole budget and time, let's say you spend 30% creating the content, you want to spend 70% on promoting it. That includes advertising. A lot of people think, oh, I'm creating content in an organization. All my time is spent on creating the content. Great. Well, who's going to engage with that content? I'm going to get that out to somebody. That's going to be, oh, I need to talk to Jason. I need to talk to John about how I get that out, and so that I can build the audience. And once I build some kind of audience, I can say, how do I make a direct connection? And how do I change that behavior? So there's multiple steps. You have to play with the devil, unfortunately, if you want to get an audience on some of those platforms.
It's like advertising is exactly the same as it has always been.
It is.
There's like the creative department, and now the creative department is moved outside of the agency entirely to people like John, but then there's the distribution, the media buying aspect.
Yeah.
So how do you gauge those numbers for media buying influencers, like, who already have those channels, especially when it's unpredictable with LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook, etc., changing the way this space works all the time?
I want Jason to talk about the numbers because he knows better. But just so everybody realizes, the advertising industry is like the sun, and content marketing is like Pluto. It's not even a planet. Like, we talk about it like everybody's doing content marketing. Well, they probably are, but nobody's seeing any of that. Like, we create more content in organizations than anything else we do, but most of it goes unseen. Most organizations aren't good at telling stories, aren't good at doing it consistently. So that's why we have to figure out, oh, we're not good at this. Where's my audience at? I better do an advertising program and talk to Jason. Isn't that kind of how it works? It's just really difficult for content marketing programs to get off the ground.
But I think that's where also content is matured to a point to say, how else do we repurpose this, right? So whether you're a fan of Cope or Core, Cope is create once, publish everywhere, or Core is repurpose everywhere. But the gist is, like, the investment is made. You take a photo, okay, well, you're going to put it on your Instagram feed, but where else could you put that? Could you sell it as a print, right? Could you put it on a T-shirt? You know, whatever it is, on your website, et cetera. So that definitely applies to brands more. They like it because there's more control over that, but it's not a quick hit like buying an advertisement would be, right? Because it's not quite guaranteed, but you understand
change.
Reach, right? You understand distribution more so with that, where all these other methods are a bit looser.
And your client is a public company that has a quarterly report that needs to go out, and they need change now.
You wanna
and
get
they're
into
not
that?
willing to wait 9 to 12 months to build an audience to do that. I'm just guessing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let me take a sip.
All right, so content is Pluto, and the advertising industry is the sun. Isn't it changing? Like, the content is that organic storytelling is what people want to create understanding and to create trust. You have this, you connect with and relate to a story over and over and over and over again. It becomes familiar. It builds trust. You're willing to give your hard-earned money towards that because you've consistently had this story that's shown up. Don't you think like everything is going to shift there? Like this, why is it that more? One, is that going to continue to change more money into making all of the kindergartners YouTubers, because we just have to have content that more money from the advertising agency going into content. I think that'd be pretty cool if that's actually the way the world kind of shifted, that people are spending their time doing work, documenting things that are the most interesting and exciting to them. But is that actually happening?
Well, the quick thing is, if you have everyone doing this, that money, that pie has to be split up between all of them. So you're going to have more people doing content, you probably already do, doing content creation than anything else they do. Going to people that really, they're just trying to fill some kind of a need. They don't care about a trusting relationship. I want the trusting relationship with you as my audience. You don't care. Right. You just say, I have a problem, I need to fill that need. So I have to make sure that what is your need, and I have to fill that need, and I have to do it over and over and over again, so ultimately you buy from me. That is very hard to do when you have troves of people creating all this content. So not to be negative about it, but that's why the people that keep doing it over and over again, if you have, and I don't want, like, if you have a Haktua girl that has her 15 minutes in fame, just to give an example, does really well for 2 months, and now you don't hear anything about her. She never put in the work to build never wanted to, but never put in the work like John has. John's built an audience over a long period of time, and now you're at a point where you can significantly monetize that. So it's very exciting. So you have to put the work in up front, and most people don't do that.
You have to follow the money with the platforms, right? Platforms, if every kindergartner wants to grow up and be a YouTuber, that's fine, but the platforms won't exist on people just creating content. Somebody has to pay them.
Right.
And they're not paid subscription models.
They're not.
Right? So they will penalize, and frankly, the more folks that are out there creating content, like Joe said, the more noise there is. So when you need to or have to break through, you will need to pay the gatekeeper.
There's no disrupting it, ever. Yeah. How do you feel, John?
He's uncomfortable. He doesn't like this at all.
I think they nailed it, but I think there's another aspect too that's coming up with content creation that hasn't been talked about that will disrupt it.
AI?
Yes.
I knew it.
And there's I feel like there's no way of knowing right now where that's going. But I think it's going to be a challenge, and I think that that makes even more noise because people are already creating their own content, but now they can create that content like 10 times faster. So it's really about just breaking through the noise, and I mean, I guess when it comes to how I think about how I do content, it's just relating to the audience that we've built and continuing to deliver that message. So.
Yeah, I'm really romantic about this idea of people doing the work that they love and then being able to document it, but you spend so much time doing the documenting versus like living your life. So people are working on, and then I see AI. There's some things where you're supposed to like say if something was made by AI, but at some point in time, like the percentage of content that's been going to be made every day is going to be more and more mostly AI. And does that reduce the relevance of the storytelling that the human prompters have been putting into?
Well, I think when it comes to using AI and working with it, it's not like you can put in a prompt and what you get out isn't what you necessarily run with. There is a skill, and I think that goes into prompting and learning to work with the AI.
You're using it.
I use AI pretty heavily, and I wouldn't. It helps streamline a lot of things, but there's a lot of things you have to I think be worried about as well. I'm very thorough, and especially like doing research, you have to be, we are seen as a news platform, so we want to be as accurate as possible when it comes to putting that information out there. But yeah, it definitely helps streamline information, research, and all of that.
We could take some questions from the audience if you guys would like to do that, unless Jason and Joe want to weigh in on AI if they're...
No. No, Kathy McPhillips is here with the Marketing AI Institute. So if
Buy her
anyone
a
has
drink
any
if you wanna know.
questions about AI, they should be asking her. And we all believe that AI is not a real thing, right? I'm sorry. Yes, we'd love to take questions. She didn't like that I called her out.
We can only take a couple. We got to get. We've got drinks to
Music to
serve
get
and music to play. Do you have any, guys want to do any questions before? Jason and John and Joe and I are very happy to come and I don't know what's going on with the mic. It's okay. No questions for us today? There they are. Let's start right here.
Content creation is all well and good, but I think what many content creators struggle with is the conversion element of the process. So if you could talk about what helps to drive the highest conversions in terms of going from content everybody likes to content that people are willing to invest in from a buyer point of view, and what have you seen in your experience being the most compelling to get those conversions?
John actually has a lot of.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Is there something specific you're trying to convert them to?
Well, to buyers.
Yeah. Okay. So to purchase a product or a service. Okay. Good. Thanks.
Is that a question for me?
It could be a good question for Jason if you.
Yeah, it's a tall order, right? Because on these platforms, that's not why most people log on to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Now, some platforms.
So the question is, what content converts? What's going to the most likely thing to create to lead people to sales for business interest? Is that correct? Yeah.
And what platform are you using? Are you have one specifically in mind? Instagram? Okay. There you go. Solve the problem. Instagram conversions. Go.
Hold on, let me call somebody. Can't believe they let me here by myself. It's a reality check, like I was saying, because of the mindset that the vast majority of consumers are visiting that platform not to come find your product. That is shifting, right? And we are seeing referral traffic to especially e-commerce sites really start to take off, because especially younger generations are using that as a primary. It used to be a secondary, but now as a primary source of search and discovery. So for product companies especially, it is becoming a much more, I don't want to say easy, but I think it's a viable way for product companies to go to market. But it's still going to be a sliver of that overall audience, right? So it is still about an integrated mix that how do you retarget off of that platform? How do you get a subscriber off that platform? How do you get anything, right, to get them a little further down the funnel than just awareness, right? Because that's essentially what you're doing on these platforms is building brand. You're building in brand awareness. So there's no silver bullet. It is a numbers game and pushing them further down that funnel for you.
Corey, you want to grab a question?
I was curious about what kind of space do you normally find your creators in? Are you scrolling through Instagram, searching for certain tags, certain quality traits?
Oh, yeah. As you're shopping for partners, how do you do it?
So, real quickly, because there was a comment before I want to go back, and I think this is where, while the gray in my beard is going to foretell some of this, if you just study the evolution of these things, right? So many things start clicking in, and the next thing isn't as shocking. Where those that don't, right? It's like, oh my God, there's this TikTok thing. Well, it's a different form of video in YouTube, and then everyone followed it, right? But there's these things that pile up. So we worked with Cedar Point and now Six Flags on mommy bloggers way back in the day, right? Way back in the day. And they just became this modern version of social media influencers. So what the hell was the question again?
Where do you find your influencers?
Where do you find your
besides OnlyFans, Jason?
Oh.
Where do you find
Wow. Wow.
Your influencers.
So what I was getting at with the mommy influencers or the mommy bloggers was there's a lot of different ways to find them, right? And I think it depends on the brand. We like going into the nooks and crannies to find sometimes the ones that are not seen often, right? The ones that might be more, frankly, give us a better value. We've done a lot of NIL deals over the last few years, and we've bet on a few freshmen who are names you know now, but they and their agents, not all of them, but they and their agents have rewarded us as they've gotten older for being first on that bus, right? So there's little things like that. On the NIL thing again, we worked with a couple mattress brands for years, and instead of giving them to the star players, we gave them the entire offensive line. Like what a different, interesting story. Those guys didn't get shit. Like no one cared about them. They wanted the skilled players. They were great value, right? And they did anything that was asked of them. They were just so grateful. So like you didn't have to go completely out of the zone. You just got to think a little bit on the edges of it. It's the same thing. Like the mommy bloggers that just wanted the free trip and had great vanity metrics, they were terrible because they were just shopping their numbers, which even back then were probably inflated and bought somehow. We wanted those that worked a little harder and did things a little differently. Their audience was just a little different, and frankly, because they built more trust. So I'm sorry, it's a convoluted answer, and you threw OnlyFans at me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I want to ask another question so badly that's related to Corey's, and it's so when I was working in more traditional buying, there were tools that we could see what media numbers, Nielsen numbers and things like that. But we could look over time and see where things are trending. And I don't know of anything like this with social media. If there's some sort of scoreboard that's like, within this space of engagement or impressions, we can use impressions as that's what we're buying. Media buying, we're buying impressions. So you're watching the growth, and if you're betting on somebody young, watching some quick growth in places where people are going to be growing in the number of impressions over time, are there tools that do that would help you to find like where you might make some bets like on what influencers to buy?
Kathy, does SparkToro do that, where they help you find audience groupings from different social channels? Do you know?
I don't think so.
No, they don't?
No. There's several out there. We use Clear with a K, and it's, like any of these SaaS products, they go through evolutions and bought and sold, and sometimes they improve, sometimes they don't. But yes, there are more tools for brands to do that.
There was something that used to be called Cloud a long, long time ago that was kind of
good
rating,
memory. Yeah. But I think that's where you also look.
Analytica. There's a number of tools out there that do that. Like if you find influencers for me, Analytica will do that. There's a number of other ones that
Taking the fun
do
out
that.
of it.
It isn't. Well, I think we talked a little bit about this before, but what I would like to see is if employees, if we're with the brand, we work with a brand, and employees are our biggest marketing assets. Why don't, instead of always looking outside for influencers, why don't we invest in our employees and help them become the influencers, which rarely ever happens, which is the big. So if you look at what New York Times is doing, they have their newsletters. All their newsletters were always by, news of the day, and it was a picture. It didn't come from anyone. It came from New York Times. And all these fashion came from New York Times. Now they all come from an individual. They're saying, people want to receive content from an individual. They want to get to know that, and they want to trust that individual. The same thing's going on with everything else, but most brands don't do that because they don't want to put that much power with their employees. And what is going to happen? Maybe they'll leave. And I'd rather spend money with somebody on the outside. That's what we want them to do right now. That's the huge opportunity that not a lot of companies are doing, saying, oh, we have this amazing mechanical engineer that has already sort of built an audience. Let's put more around them. They work for us. We have a plant manager. We have an operations manager. That's, I think, the next phase of where we're going, of really helping. And I know you do a lot of training as well, training the organization to say, you already have the talent. The influencers are inside. Let's help them.
Well, I also think it's what you guys have been doing. We talked about merch. Like, yes, I fully agree with you guys. But say, all right, they're not only have a great following, but they have a following that's willing to put the brand on their body. Like, holy hell, that's different than somebody with equal numbers that doesn't have a bunch of folks walking around as a billboard, right? That is a different level of engagement. I think a lot of places do it, but not as many that should. And that's a great signal to us when we see that. And I think it's, also depends on what a brand defines as influence.
Right.
How do you want to measure that, right? And everyone's got a different definition right now.
Well, I think we're going to do one more question. Alex, what's up?
Content be more valuable instead of the massive corporation putting out like the New York Times, instead of them putting out the content.
Well, Joe already just said that that's the New York Times is people, and the New York Times recognized that what people want is to have their content from people. I mean, I would, you don't have to, but I would trust the New York Times is. What do you think, Joe?
The answer is yes, both. You will see some people that say, I want to know this person is a human, but not most. You're going to have, if not already, 99.9% of all content is going to be artificially generated probably within the next 5 years. So you're going to have a small amount of that. I want people that want bespoke jackets or something, like they want their own, and that's fine. That's great. They're going to have that. But most people, we already have avatars out there, people on Instagram, not people, AIs on Instagram and TikTok that are not real. They're computer generated. And you're adding 10,000 of those a day. People don't care if they're solving their needs. So I'm a little nervous about the future. I don't know where it's going to go, but I can tell you for sure most of it's going to be automated in some way or touched by AI in some way, but there is going to be a small percentage that want the Wrangler jeans, or they want the Jordanaires, or whatever the case is. So I don't know if that answers your question, but smaller percentage.
You mentioned TikTok, and may I just say that is the most petulant of all the social media platforms. Oh, there's some fans of that.
From the plankton.
So, it swims amongst the plankton. I don't know. It's just not there. But yeah, the other problem and opportunity, I think, is where it's a TikTokification, right? Instagram's following this model now, where it's taking content to the user versus allowing or forcing you to follow it, right? So it is easier to be found, but it's a different game to be played too.
I have a follow-up here, which is a very short question. Is in the space of social media, they are constantly changing the algorithm. How do you stay on top of that?
Yeah, John.
It's a lot of experimentation, to be honest. I've always said that social media is kind of trial and error. And I was actually going to touch on one thing that you mentioned where you've already spent the money on the content. And obviously there's like A/B testing and things when you're running ads, but I'll take something down that I posted that completely flopped. I'll change one very minor thing, and it just completely changes the trajectory of the post. That's what I would say. A lot of trial and error, figuring out what's working for you and doubling down on what that is.
Yeah. Guys, give it up for everybody up here. Woohoo! I want to give my most sincere and deep thanks to John Stursa, Jason Therrien, Joe Pulizzi. These guys are awesome. Please hang out. We're going to get some music on. Claire Therrien is up first. The sun
Yeah, you too.
is not really around, but we're going to enjoy the sunset for however much we can. Thanks, guys.
I want to make sure that you do your thing.
Thank you. That was fun.
Sorry about the OnlyFans.
He's not.
I frankly should have expected it. I'm sorry, I acted so.
I don't know if this is all.
Oh, man.
Let's put this here. Here, I'll select them. That's good.